Well, good morning. Today is Thursday, March the 28th, and we are continuing our series of videos this week, which is entitled Holy Week Videos here at First Baptist Gaston. Today is Maundy Thursday, and hopefully you've looked at the written devotional for today. Our scripture reading for today is found in Isaiah chapter 50, verses 4 through 10, as well as Luke chapter 22, verses 1 through 65. And so, Luke chapter 22 describes what happened on Thursday night of Holy Week. We know this was the Passover, and it is often regarded as the upper room, right? This is where Jesus had time with his disciples. So I want to talk about, for a few minutes this morning, about personal greatness or profound godliness in your life. Excuse me. Luke chapter 22 recounts the night before Jesus was crucified. Now, there is so much that happens in Luke chapter 22. So for the purpose of this devotional video, I actually just want to focus on one verse, which is Luke chapter 22, verse 24. Now, we know that this was the last night that Jesus had with his disciples. This very night is when Jesus goes into the Garden of Gethsemane and prays and has that time. And then we know that he is ultimately arrested and then betrayed. He's betrayed by Judas, right? And Judas was one of the 12 who was at the table that night at the upper room. And so verse 24 of Luke 22 says, a dispute also arose among them as to which of them was to be regarded as the greatest. Now, right after this, in Luke chapter 22, starting in verse 31, Jesus is going to point out that Peter is going to be the one that is going to deny him 3 times, and that is going to be pointed out. And then, of course, the Lord's Supper is going to occur. But I don't know about you, but does it not blow your mind that Jesus had just given the Lord's Supper there in verse 20, and already in verse 24, the disciples are trying to figure out which one of them is the greatest. The disciples had no idea the night that was going to unfold that night in the upper room. But in the middle of Jesus thinking about and sharing these things with them, these last things before he gets ready to fulfill the mission that his Father gave him, they talk about who's the greatest. The crazy thing about this is that this personal greatness that they're speaking of, about who is the greatest of the disciples, is not the first time they do this. The disciples do this in Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 through 28. They also do it in Mark chapter 9, verses 33 through 37, and in Luke chapter 9, 46 through 48. So this isn't the first time, but they revert back to something that they did quite frequently, which was argue about who is the greatest. Now, before you say, how dare they do that, I want to give you a few reasons as to why you and I do the same thing in churches today. How many times do we talk about our own greatness even within the confines of the local church? How many times do we say, well, my Sunday school class is the biggest, or my discipleship group is the biggest, or my favorite program is thriving, and look at me, and look at this, and look at that. Instead of showing profound godliness, we would rather focus on personal greatness. There's a huge difference, church. We need to be focused on profound godliness coming through and shining through in our lives. Let me ask you this: does godliness come out of you? In verses 25 through 30 of Luke 22, Jesus talks about the one who is great is the one who serves. Are you serving God today, and are you allowing his godliness to flow through you? This is Maundy Thursday of Holy Week. We can't wait to see you tomorrow for Good Friday.